Okay, so today we're going to cover section 4, and its equation of lines and curve fitting. So again, here are the different forms for the linear equation. First one, slope-intercept, y equals mx plus b. Remember here, the slope is represented as the letter m, and the b represents your y-intercept. In your point-slope form of the equation, the x1 and y1 is going to come from an order pair. Again, the m is the slope. Standard form, remember you can't have any fractions, so a, b, and c must be integers, and a must be a positive integer. Okay, so these are the three forms of the equation. Also remember that when you have a vertical line, it's going to be x equals a number. So if I said graph or give me the equation of a vertical line through a specific point. So let's say if I said a vertical line through point AB, it would just be x equals a. So it's x equals whatever that a is of the order pair. Now if I said give me an equation of a horizontal line, remember that's going to be y equals a number, and if it were through the same order pair, it would be y equals b. Remember the slope of your vertical line is undefined. Remember the graph is up and down, so undefined. And then the horizontal line has a slope that's 0. Okay, so this is pretty much a review of what we talked about on Friday. Again, a review of Algebra 1. So what we're going to do today is we're going to come up with equations in either slope-intercept form, point-slope form, or standard form. So here's the first example. They're asking us to write an equation of the line through this order pair with a slope of -3. Now, if it asks you for point slope, then we're going to use this formula, y minus y1 equals m x minus x1. So this is the point slope that you memorize. So if it asks you to write an equation in point slope, all I'm going to do is replace x1, y1, and the slope. So the y will stay. The x1 is my y1 is 1. So I'm going to put in -1. My slope is -3. The x stays, and then I'm going to put in x1, which is -4. Now notice this part over here, this negative, we're going to simplify to an x plus 4. Now, if the instruction said to leave it in point slope, we're done. However, if it says to put it in slope-intercept, then we need to distribute and combine like terms. So I'll distribute the -3, rewrite this side, and then I'll add the 1. So y is equal to -3x minus 11. So if the instructions say point slope, we stop here. If it says slope-intercept, then we keep going. Now let's say it said to put it in standard form. So let's fix this up a little bit more. I can add the 3x, bless you, and I get 3x plus y equals -11. And this is standard form. Notice I have no fractions, and my number in front of x, which is my a, is positive. One other way that you probably learned in Algebra 1, and let me just show you this. I like point slope. Point slope is going to help you later on in other courses, so you might want to be aware of it. and be comfortable with using it. You may have learned in Algebra 1 to put your equation in slope-intercept by using slope-intercept. So for example, if I take my same given, and my slope is -3, if I just use this instead of x1, y1, use this as x and y, and then plug it in and solve for the b, this is another way. So instead of using point slope, you could have also plugged in 1 for the y, -3 for the m, -4 for the x, solve for the b, 1 equals 12 plus b, move the 12, my b is 11, and now I take it and I put this back for here and this back for here. So notice I still got the same answer as I did when I used point slope. So this may be the technique that they taught you in Algebra 1. As far as putting it into slope-intercept form, you can use either the point slope or the slope-intercept. I don't care. Now, if the instructions say point slope, then definitely you need to memorize that formula and plug in the 3 things, the x1, y1, and the slope. Again, it wants us to write an equation, and I'm going to put it in all 3 forms because we need to be able to practice all 3, because again, on the test or the quiz, or actually this isn't on the quiz, but on the test, it'll be specific of what form we want you to leave it in. So equation of the line, notice this time they did not give me the slope, but they did give me 2 order pairs. So I first need to calculate the slope of these 2 lines. So again, it doesn't matter which one you label as x1, y1 and x2, y2, just pick it. So I'm gonna say this one is x1, y1, and this is gonna be my x2, y2. So my order pair number 1, my order pair number 2. I'm going to plug it into the slope formula. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So let's plug it in. So if I do y2, it's -4 minus 2 over 2 minus -3. Be very careful with your negative signs. I get -6 over +5. So the slope I'm using is -6 over 5. Now, if you would have labeled the -3, 2, that first order pair, as x2, y2, you will still get the same slope. Once you do it, your negative sign would have been at the bottom. But again, one negative sign makes that a negative slope. Now that I have the slope and I have 1 order pair, it doesn't matter which one I choose. So since I labeled this one as x1, y1, that's what I'm going to use for my point slope. Again, it doesn't matter which one you use. You're still going to get the same answer. Now, if it says point slope, you would definitely get a different answer. But if it says slope-intercept, by time you distribute and combine your like terms, it ends up being the same. So let's plug it in. Again, y minus y1, m times x minus x1. Again, I'm going to replace the slope. I'm going to replace the x1. And I'm going to replace the y1. Let's put everything back. So y minus 2 equals, now my slope, leave the x. My x1 is -3. And that negative is going to become a positive. So if it says point slope, only thing I'd expect you to simplify is that negative, make it a plus sign. So this would be the point slope form of that equation. And now if it asks for slope intercept, we need to distribute. Now, what I'm going to do is, let's go ahead and get rid of the fraction. I'm going to multiply everything by 5. So this will become 5y minus 10 -6 times x plus 3. distribute now. Negative 6x minus 18. I need to isolate y, so I'm going to add 10. 5y equals negative 6x minus 8, divide by 5. Remember to divide all three pieces, so this becomes y equals negative 6 over 5x minus 8/5. This is slope-intercept form. Let's now change this into standard form. So if I go ahead and move the 6/5 back, 6/5 x plus y equals negative 8/5. And again, I can multiply everything back by 5 and get rid of the fractions here. So 6x plus 5y equals negative 8. Once it's up here at this point, when I had originally multiplied it, this would have been where you would have probably wanted to rearrange it into standard, if at that point. So again, make sure you understand what each one of the forms looks like. So this one is standard form. Again, remember, no fractions, and your x term must be positive, the number in front of x. Next one is asking us, now it's specifying. It wants it in slope-intercept form. Remember, it's y equals mx plus b. Remember, the b is the y-intercept. So this one's easy. All I have to do is take out the letter m and the letter b and replace it with what was given to me. So this becomes y equals negative 4 over 5x minus 2. Now, just to practice, let's go ahead and put it back. Let's put it into standard form. So again, standard form, get rid of the fraction. So this is what the instructions asked for. This is slope-intercept. But I'm going to go ahead and just practice putting it in standard. So here is my equation. To get rid of the fraction, I'm going to multiply all three things by 5. Negative 4x minus 10. Move the x. 4x plus 5y equals negative 10. And this is standard form. All right, one. So we just practiced this. So it says find an equation of the line with a slope of negative 2/5, a y-intercept of 3, and now it's specifying that it wants it in standard form. So the first thing I'm going to do is put it in slope-intercept form. So y equals negative 2/5, that's my m. And then my y-intercept, my b, is 3. And now to get it in standard form, I'm going to multiply my entire equation by 5 to clear that fraction. So it becomes 5y negative 2x plus 15. And remember, standard form is ax plus by equals c. Add the 2x. 2x plus 5y equals 15. And that is now standard form. Remember the red here, this was slope-intercept. What you need to memorize about parallel lines is parallel lines have the same slope. Perpendicular lines have negative, or you might also see this written as opposite reciprocal. So they're going to have opposite signs, and then they're going to be reciprocals. So notice the example here. The first equation has positive 2/3, and then the line that's perpendicular to it has a negative sign, and then it's the fraction flipped upside down. So for the slope, for the parallel, notice this right here has a positive 3, and this has positive 3. Now, keep in mind, this is a lot on the PSAT, SAT, because remember, when you solve system of equations, when you're solving equations that have the same slope, that solution to a system of equations is no solution, because notice my parallel lines never cross. So whenever they're asking you what would produce a no solution situation, what's the constant, you need to make sure that those constants or those numbers in front of x are the same number. So here we could count the rise and the run. Notice my pink line rises 1, runs 1, same for the blue. So this would have, they would be parallel because they're rising and running at the same rate. One other thing about the perpendicular, let me go back here. When you multiply these two slopes, their product is always going to equal -1. So you may see things described that way. Just know the product of the slopes of perpendicular lines is always -1 because they're going to be opposite signs and reciprocals. Now, so if it wants us to find an equation of the line through this specific ordered pair and parallel to this equation, the first thing we need to do is realize that parallel lines have the same slope. So I need to find the slope of that line. Once I find the slope, that will be the m that I use, and then I'm going to use that ordered pair as my x1, y1. So let's rearrange this equation into slope-intercept form. So I'm going to subtract 2x, 5y is equal to -2x plus 4. Divide everything by 5. And in slope-intercept, my equation of the line is y equals -2/5 x plus 4/5. The only thing that I need to take out of this equation is the slope, because I want it to be parallel to this. So the slope that I'm using is -2/5. The ordered pair that I'm using is the 3, 5. This will be my x1, y1. I'm going to plug it in to point slope. So y minus y1 m times x minus x1. Let's plug in the 3 pieces. So y minus 5, -2/5, x minus 3. If it asks for point slope, we stop here. If it wants slope intercept, then I'm going to distribute combined like terms. Let's go ahead and put it into standard form first. So I'm going to get rid of the fraction. I'm going to multiply everything by 5. So 5y minus 25 equals -2 times x minus 3. I'm going to distribute. I'm going to move my constant over. 5y equals -2x plus 31. Move the 2x over. 2x plus 5y equals 31. So if the question said standard form, we stop here. If it says slope intercept, that's y equals mx plus b. So take the standard form, move the x away from the y. 5y, negative 2x plus 31. And now divide everything by 5. So y is equal to negative 2 over 5x plus 31 over 5. And this is slope-intercept. Perpendicular, let's go ahead and, again, same equation here. So let's go ahead and rearrange it so we can get the slope. I'm going to move the 2x over. 5y equals negative 2x plus 4. Divide everything by 5. Y is equal to negative 2/5 x plus 4/5. Now, remember, for perpendicular, the slopes are going to be opposite signs and reciprocals. So my slope right now is negative 2/5. My perpendicular slope is going to be positive, and I flip the fraction upside down. So this will be the slope that I'm using now. And again, I'm going to use the same order pair, that 3, 5, as my x1, y1. So y minus y1, mx minus x1. Plug in y1, plug in the slope, plug in the x1. Now, if it wants standard form, let's clear my fraction. Times everything by 2. I'm going to distribute. Rewrite the left side. And now I'm going to add 10. Get the constant together. Okay, let's do that. Good idea, Vincent. Okay, so let's move instead the y, and we'll move the constant to the other side because we want to leave our x positive. I could have moved it over, but then I can divide everything by negative 1. Either way, so let me just do it this way. So then I get 2y equals 2y plus 5 equals 5x minus the 2y. 5 is equal to 5x minus 2y. So rearrange it, put the x and the y on the left, and this would be standard form. Now again, I could have moved the 15 and then move the x, or move the 10 and just divide everything by negative 1. Standard form, no fractions, and x is positive. And let's rearrange it into y equals mx plus b. Now watch what happens. Make sure that your slope, if you're putting it in slope-intercept, does end up being that 5 over 2, that opposite reciprocal. So if I want now slope-intercept, I'm going to subtract the 5x. Negative 2y is equal to negative 5x plus 5. Divide everything by negative 2. And notice negative divided by negative makes this positive 5 over 2x minus 5 over 2. So one way you could double check is once you've done everything, make sure that that beginning work that you did way up here and the slope that you originally plugged in was the same. It was the opposite sign and reciprocal. Let's again talk about horizontal and vertical lines. And then we're going to be done. So again, the equation of a horizontal line is y equals a number. And that number is the y of the ordered pair that they give you. So notice here, I gave you an ordered pair of 2, 5. And if I want a horizontal line, it's y equals this number. Let's say I gave you the ordered pair 3, -1, and I want a horizontal line. It'll be y equals -1. If it's vertical, it's x equals a number, and that number is the x of the ordered pair. And again, here, it's x equals 2. If I use this same ordered pair I just did above, it's x equals 3. Remember again, slope of the vertical line is undefined. Slope of the horizontal is 0. One other thing, when you have a vertical line and you graph it, let's go ahead and just graph 2 of these. Let me graph the 2 that are right here. So if I graph y equals -1, that's going to be this line here. Let me do this one in green. So y equals -1 is going to be the horizontal line through -1. If I graph x equals 3, this one is going to be the vertical line through 3. Notice a vertical and a horizontal line together are forming perpendicular lines. Because remember, if I were to have calculated the slope, one of them would have had a 0 in the top, one would have a 0 in the bottom. So the case of a horizontal and a vertical line together form perpendicular lines. So remember that. So then I just has a summary of the different forms, the slope-intercept, the point slope, standard, and then when you have a horizontal and a vertical line. Just a little summary of the linear equations. Homework is from these 2 pages, and it's 5 through 21 odd, 27 through 39 odd. Now this homework isn't due tomorrow. Your homework tonight is to study for the quiz. This homework is due on Wednesday, but in a way it sort of will help you with the quiz because it is sort of linked. You're not having to write equations. You will be graphing on the quiz. So you will be graphing horizontal lines, vertical lines, lines that have a slope and a y-intercept, different things like that.